This is Performance Insight with Dr. Abiola Salami.
Hi, this is Dr. Abiola Salami, and this is the weekly podcast on Performance Insights. And this week, I'll be sharing insights on how workplace woke attitude is quietly destroying the future of career professionals and entrepreneurs.
You are listening to Performance Insight with Dr. Abiola Salami, the world-class performance strategist, a platform curated to build models of excellence in the African marketplace.
We live in an age where awareness is applauded, and rightfully so. Inclusion, empathy, and justice are non-negotiable values in any modern workplace. But there is a line, and lately, more professionals are realizing they've crossed it, not into progress, but into paralysis. Workplace wokeness is a culture of overcorrection, where fear of saying the wrong thing outweighs the courage to do the right thing, where performative act outpaces principle-based performance, where people talk about change more than they actually drive this change. This is not a takedown on social awareness. It is a wake-up call about how activism, entitlement disguised as empathy, or overcorrective politics in the workplace can undermine personal accountability, create learned helplessness, erode leadership trust, and reward noise over results. You see, it is subtle. It often feels righteous, but beneath the surface, it's quietly sabotaging your career. It is sabotaging your leadership and your ability to thrive. This is not a rebuke, it is a reveal, because when you are building a future that matters, you don't have time to be cute about your growth. High trust spaces don't require performance posturing, they require principle-based performance. And if we want to become unstoppable, we can't build from fragility. So we will look at some of the forms of workplace work attitude that might be destroying your future without you even realizing it. And the first one is performative allyship without personal conviction. When you amplify every trending hashtag and every DEI initiative, but you don't truly examine your own biases, your decisions or behaviors, this is performative allyship without personal conviction. You show up for the optics, not for outcomes. You endorse causes publicly, but rarely engage them meaningfully when it matters. You repost, but you don't reflect. No matter how hard you try, some people will start to see you as a marketing campaign and not a meaningful contributor. Optics without authenticity damages trust. People can smell it when you are not authentic. When your actions don't align with your rhetoric, trust erodes, and so does your credibility. People may smile to your face, but they know when you are hollow behind the scenes. When people lose faith in your sincerity, your influence fades no matter how loud your voice is. This woke attitude creates a culture where symbolism replaces substance and nothing truly changes. So what you want to do is to put your money where your mouth is and put your action where your conviction is. The second woke attitude that might be destroying your future is silencing yourself to avoid offense. When you avoid hard conversations, especially around race, gender, or ideology, for fear of being labeled offensive, problematic, or ignorant, and then you withhold ideas that might make a real difference just to stay safe. You tiptoe in meetings, avoiding honest input for fear of offending someone or being called out. Your voice becomes so filtered, it's no longer valuable. Innovation dies when people censor themselves. It is important you note that. And over time, your value will diminish because your voice disappears. Playing small won't protect you forever. It will just make you invisible. This woke attitude makes you trade transformation for tension avoidance, and that is a losing game. You see, growth requires discomfort. Leaders who tiptoe around truth never gain influence, and teams without tension never build resilience. The third woke attitude that may be destroying your future is overusing identity language to signal virtue. When your sentences start with as a, or it ends with for marginalized voices, regardless of context or relevance, you are overusing identity language to signal virtue. You frame every opinion as a protected identity stance to avoid critique. When identity is used as a mic drop instead of a meaningful lens, it creates division and not inclusion. You reduce people to categories and you lose sight of shared goals. Instead of bringing people together, you build walls of misunderstanding. You center every opinion or initiative around around your identity group to earn unearned authority, and it becomes a shield against critique instead of a channel for contribution. You reduce people to categories and you lose sight of shared goals instead of bringing people together. This attitude can create division, not inclusion, especially when it is leveraged to avoid accountability or disagreement. When identity becomes a tactic instead of a truth, collaboration suffers. When identity is used as a mic drop instead of a meaningful lens, it creates division and not inclusion. The fourth woke attitude that may be destroying your future without you knowing it is when you replace excellence with representation alone. Promotions, panels, and praise become more about optics than outcomes. Initiatives become driven by quotas instead of quality. People are hired, promoted, or highlighted based on demographics over their capability. Then diversity becomes a decor, not a driver of innovation. Equity matters, yes, but not at the cost of excellence and performance and the survival and significance of an organization. Over time, people will notice when talent takes a backseat to tokenism. When people are chosen to look right rather than be right for the role, resentment and mistrust will follow. Tokenism insults everyone involved and it weakens merit-based systems that drive high performance and growth. The bar is quietly lowered and excellence becomes optional. That is not what you want to do. You don't want to replace excellence with representation alone. The fifth woke attitude that may be destroying the future without you knowing it is policing language instead of understanding intent. When you are more focused on correcting someone's words than understanding their heart or their message, you scan conversations for infractions instead of connection. You correct people's phrasing even when their message is respectful or meaningful. You are listening to find fault, not to connect with them. Then this is unproductive communication, because communication in this case dies in fear. If your colleagues are scared to speak, creativity plummets. Innovation requires psychological freedom, not linguistic perfection. People will stop contributing not because they don't care, but because they are afraid to get it wrong. The team then starts working on eggshells and creativity will vanish. So you want to be careful not to be policing language. You want to understand the intent of people when they are communicating. Even at best, go for communication training yourself and lead your team to communication training so that they'll have the capacity to deliver productive communication. The sixth woke behavior that may be quietly destroying your future is virtue signaling on LinkedIn without internal change. When you post eloquently about mental health, diversity, sustainability, service orientation on LinkedIn, but your team is burned out, disengaged, and underrepresented. You post beautifully about inclusion, about empathy, about mental health, but your actual team is overworked, unheard, and disengaged. You craft a polished image while your internal culture quietly crumbles. Your digital personnel becomes a mask for leadership failure. This is virtue signaling publicly without any internal change. You become a walking contradiction. The louder your online persona, the more scrutiny you invite. You lose the respect of your team and eventually your own influence because your leadership feels like marketing, not mentorship. Eventually, the disconnect between your brand and reality will cost you respect and retention because your team members will seek their career growth in other organizations. Authentic leadership starts in the office, not on social media. So, if you want to be an authentic leader, ensure that what you post is what you believe and what you believe is how you behave. The seventh woke attitude that may be quietly destroying the future of your organization and the future of the marketplace is treating disagreement as harm. Conflict is inevitable, but when you interpret pushback, critique, or a different point of view as aggression, microaggression, or unsafe behavior, that is treating disagreement as harm. You equate intellectual challenge with personal threat. You equate differing views with hostility or aggression and escalate feedback to HR before seeking dialogue. You confuse discomfort with danger, and with that, you shut down growth. Your team will then become fragile. Innovation will halt and constructive conflict will disappear, which also means progress disappears because real progress is often born from respectful dissent. Disagreement is not violent. It is a catalyst for refinement. When teams can't debate, they stagnate, and your ability to lead is directly tied to your tolerance for dissent. Not dissent for the sake of dissent, dissent because someone has another opinion. And by the way, as a leader, if it is just your opinion that is carrying your team forward, you have failed woefully, because as a leader, you are meant to be a facilitator, not a generator of ideas. You facilitate the ideas of your team members and you come to the best idea that you can pursue, that you can run with. The most effective idea wins at all times, not your idea as the leader, because you are meant to be a facilitator, not a generator. Number 8, when you hide behind sensitivity to avoid accountability. This is the 8th work behavior that is destroying the future. Hiding behind sensitivity to avoid accountability. When they confront you about something and you say, "Oh, that triggered me," or you say, "Oh, I didn't feel seen, that's why I did that," rather than addressing the actual issue or taking ownership, you weaponize vulnerability to deflect responsibility. You dodge difficult conversations by focusing on how things felt rather than addressing what is true. You center your feelings instead of fixing the issue. Sensitivity is valuable, but when it becomes an excuse to escape growth, it becomes toxic. Personal growth dies when comfort is prioritized over character. Emotions matter, yes, but they are not shields from responsibilities. Mature professionals know the difference between feeling uncomfortable and being attacked. Leadership demands emotional intelligence, not emotional manipulation. And it is emotional manipulation if you are hiding behind sensitivity to avoid accountability. Number 9, cancel culture instead of coaching culture. Someone makes a mistake, and instead of correcting the person onto growth, they are sidelined, shunned, and blacklisted. That is cancel culture. There is no grace for growth, only punishment for imperfection. That is cancel culture. But cancel culture cannot help us thrive. Cancel culture will destroy the future. Colleagues who mess up are labeled and excluded instead of being mentored or educated. One misstep defines them forever. No grace, no growth. We can't survive that way. Mistakes are part of learning. A culture that punishes missteps becomes fearful, robotic, and cold. The fear of being the next kills morale and honesty. Cancel culture kills mentorship. It fosters fear-based compliance, not commitment to real change. A workplace without redemption becomes one where everyone walks on eggshells. So what you want to do is coach, not cancel. If you want to protect the future in the marketplace, we should avoid the culture of canceling people and embrace the culture of coaching people. Number 10 woke attitude that is quietly destroying the future is when we use wokeness to mask insecurity. You find people who align loudly with every progressive stance, but only because they don't yet know who they are or what they truly believe. You have them echo others because their own voices feel uncertain. They echo progressive language or trending causes because they are not sure of their own voice or convictions. It feels safe to sound right even if that is not real. Borrowed confidence fades quickly under pressure, and when it does, so does your ability to lead authentically fades away. Confidence that is built on trends will collapse under tension. You build your career on borrowed language, not personal conviction, the career will crash. So you want to build your career on confidence and authenticity and character. Because when you don't, in high stakes moments, you will falter because borrowed confidence can't carry real weight. People follow clarity and not mimicry. You want to be authentic. If you know that you have insecurity, don't mask it under wokeness. Get therapy, get coaching, get help to develop your authenticity. The 11th woke behavior that is quietly destroying the future is prioritizing emotional comfort over truth. Prioritizing emotional comfort over truth. You can avoid tough truths to keep everyone emotionally comfortable, and you call it kindness, but it is not kindness, it is fear. You sugarcoat feedback until it is useless. That doesn't help anyone. You can't build great culture without honest conversations. Avoidance only delays breakdown. Truth delivered with care is better than silence delivered with fear. Truth delivered with care is better than silence delivered with fear. And so, if we want to secure the future, if we want to guarantee sustained peak performance in the marketplace, it is important that we prioritize truth over emotional comfort so that we deliver truth with care and not silence with fear. The 12th woke attitude that is quietly destroying the future is deflecting criticism as phobia or privilege. When you respond to feedback with identity-based defenses instead of addressing the content of the critic, this is what we are doing. Every critic becomes a personal attack and nothing gets resolved. Over time, people will stop giving you honest feedback and you'll play too in your silence. You can't grow if no one feels safe challenging you. The moment they say something to you that you should have done this better, and then you call it phobia, or they say that you should emulate someone that's doing something better, say, the person has privilege, that's why. And we have different privileges we call white privilege, male privilege, female privilege, black privilege, different kind of privileges. You don't want to deflect criticism as phobia or privilege. You want to open and listen to feedback and take proper lessons and improve on yourself. Feedback is the breakfast of champions, and it will only work for you when you listen, when you obtain the insights, and you choose to change, to improve based on what it is that you are learning. But when you deflect criticism as phobia or privilege, it will destroy your future. The 13th woke attitude destroying the future is confusing awareness with action. Some people think that being in the know or doing the reading is enough, so they avoid the real. They avoid the uncomfortable work of change. You are a scholar of change, but not a practitioner. You can read and learn and read and learn and talk and talk. It is not about what you say. It is about what you do. Not even just about what you do, but about what you do consistently with what you know. Awareness without implementation is procrastination dressed in progress clothing. When you are aware, the proof is your action, is you implement. Learning will just become a distraction instead of a launch pad when you think that it's just about awareness. So whatever you know, do. And as you do it consistently to generate positive, sustainable results that brings value to the organization you are and the market that you serve. The 14th woke attitude that is destroying the future in the marketplace is when you weaponize diversity for power. When you use your identity or alliances to shut down discussion or control narratives. When you use it to intimidate rather than invite people into a conversation to build collaboration. Diversity used as leverage instead of value becomes manipulative and regressive. True inclusion is not a sword, it's a bridge. So if we talk about inclusion, you want to bring everybody together. You want to bring all sides together. You want to have positions from all sides of the table, from all sides of the conversation. It is not weaponizing diversity for your own unique power to manipulate people. When you do that, you are destroying the future. The 15th woke attitude that is destroying the future is when you pretend psychological safety means coddling. You equate psychological safety with never being challenged, critiqued, or disagreed with. That is not psychological safety. That is manipulation. When you confuse emotional insulation with empowerment, that is not psychological safety. That is manipulation. Because true psychological safety allows people to disagree without fear. It allows people to disagree without being disagreeable. It allows people to listen to each other. And it allows people to submit themselves to the superior conversation. Confusing safety with comfort stifles performance. High performance teams thrive on challenge, not on coddling. Not on everybody just agreeing to something because a few people agree to it, but about people really brainstorming, discussing, challenging one another till they find the superior idea that they can pursue. But when you pretend that psychological safety means coddling, then you are destroying your team and you are destroying the future. The 16th woke attitude that is gradually destroying the future is when we turn inclusion into an ideological conformity. When you say, we welcome all voices, but you only reward those who agree with the dominant cultural ideology. Diverse thought is tolerated until it makes people uncomfortable. That is turning inclusion into an ideological conformity. Because true inclusion honors ideological diversity, not conformity. And it's not just about demographic diversity. It is ensuring that you are not silencing alternative thoughts. Because when you silence alternative thought, it erodes trust. And without intellectual honesty, inclusion will become an illusion. It will just be talk and nothing, all mouth and no action. So let us be careful not to turn inclusion into an ideological conformity. It should be diverse. The final woke attitude that I have discovered that is destroying the future is mistaking activism for advancement. When you spend more time advocating for causes than delivering results or building mastery in your craft, this is mistaking activism for advancement. Your job becomes your platform, not your responsibility. Your job is supposed to be your responsibility. Activism, yes, it has its place, But if it's your only contribution, you'll be seen as emotionally engaged but professionally shallow. Impact requires both the heart and execution. So, while activism has its place, advancement, your contribution in the marketplace, is even greater than activism. And it's important that we pay attention to that. Activism is not advancement. When you are querying and you are seeking your organizations to make some adjustment, you are even better listened to when you are contributing value. When the adjustment you want the organization to make is bringing tangible value, not just esoteric value, but tangible value. Not just value they can't relate with because it sounds good or because it looks good or because everybody's doing it. You need to be able to demonstrate how it impacts the bottom line. And the easiest way to show how your recommendation impacts the bottom line is your own attitude to work yourself. You see, woke is not the enemy. Fear is the enemy. Wokeness in its purest form is awareness. And wokeness began with a good heart. Awareness is a beautiful thing. But when it mutates into fear, posturing, or performative act, it stops being progress. When awareness becomes a weapon used to signal virtue, silence dialogue, and replace substance, it quietly sabotages the very change it claims to champion. Wokeness rooted in awareness is powerful, but when distorted by ego, fear, or fragility, it backfires, silently sabotaging your credibility, your leadership, and your legacy. Now, here's what your future needs instead. Your future needs courageous honesty instead of curated speech. It needs inner alignment instead of just external signaling. It needs true inclusion built on shared purpose, not silent resentment. So don't just look like you care, lead like you care. Not with performative acts, but with principled, courageous action. Not with fear, but with wise conviction. If you're trying to look right instead of being real, you are losing more than influence. You are losing your edge. The world doesn't need more woke people. It needs more wise people. Be real enough to grow fast. Be bold enough to speak truth. And be wise enough to listen well. And if you are ready to unlearn these attitudes on your team and take your leadership to the next level, contact us today on +234 702666 8008 or reach out to us on hello@abiolachamp.com. It is your boy, Dr. Abiola Salami, the world-class performance strategist. Always remember, I love you, I believe in you, and I look forward to celebrating your greatness. Until the next time, keep rocking your world like a champion.
Thank you for listening to Performance Insights with Dr. Abiola Salami, the world-class performance strategist. This is a platform curated to build models of excellence in the African marketplace. You can follow Dr. Abiola Salami at Abiola Champ on all social media platforms or send an email to the team on hello@abiolachamp.com. For more inquiries, call 0702 666 8008.